Ready.
Okay, we're on mute.
All right. Good evening. The time is now 5 o'clock on June 5th of 2023, and it's time to call the Public Safety Committee meeting to order. Thank you all for attending. Chief, please go ahead and note attendance. Thank you. Committee members, having reviewed the agenda, are there any objections?
None.
Okay, hearing no objections, the agenda is approved. This time, we typically ask whether there are any members of the public who would like to speak to an item that is not on the agenda. To the extent that there are members of the public who would like to address an item that is on the agenda, we'd ask that they wait until that time. Is there anyone who'd like to make a public comment? Come on up. Please go ahead and state your name.
Good evening. My name is Bill Wisham. I'm the VP for the Snoqualmie Labor Group, the fire. Just wanted to address a letter that I sent to the council and the mayor tonight regarding more on the side of inquiring if there are any questions from the council. And if there are any, I'm happy to take any questions and answer what I can to help enlighten or guide any decision making moving forward. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council members, do you have any questions?
I guess I have, can we ask questions? Is that something that we can do or do?
Normally during public comment. It's at the discretion of the council. They want to ask a question.
And I
Okay.
understand this is not a work group. I understand that, but I figured I'd at least make myself available if that happened.
Okay. I do have one quick point of clarification. I had received an email from May 17th. Was there a subsequent email after that?
Nope, I believe the one I
That's
sent to
fine.
the council and the mayor was the only one that was sent.
All right, thank you.
Huh?
In that case, Councilor Watson, do you have anything?
I need to go back and find Mr. Wisham's email.
Perfectly fine. I'll be here all night. Happy to help where I can.
Reach out to you if I have any questions, if that's reasonable.
Excellent. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.
And that email is the best way to get in touch with you.
Yes,
Wonderful, thank you.
thanks.
All right. That was the only member of the public who was in council chambers, and it looks like there are no members of the public who are currently online at this time. So we'll go ahead and move on from here. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from May 15th of 2023. Are there any public comments on this matter? Seeing none. Committee members, are there any comments or concerns? No. Hearing none, the minutes dated May 15th of 2023 are approved. The next items on the agenda are agenda bills. The first is AB 23-081, the fireworks stand permit for J&M LLC.
Thank you. Agenda Bill 81 is for the J&M LLC. The second one is for Impact Ministries. They're both almost identical. So J&M LLC, they've turned in all of their documentation and it has met the requirements of the Snoqualmie Municipal Code. The only issue with J&M's is their location. They usually set up in the Dollar Tree parking lot area. But unfortunately now with the I think it's Kinder Care is the name of the business that's going on there. That whole area is a construction site right now. So the individual that applies for the application or applies for the permit is working with the property owner to see if there's another location on the site there. He understands the timelines associated with this application. And I guess what we're asking for in the fire department, because there is some time constraints that we deal with on these, that if you do approve it, that it's conditionally approved on finding location, that would work for them up at the Dollar Tree site. There are some setback issues that we need to deal with. And basically what would happen is there is a form that I need to sign as the fire chief, and we would withhold signing that until they've met all the requirements. J&M has been an applicant multiple years since I've been here. They've always sold up on the ridge. The applicant is out of Okanagan County. But I believe the funds support different ministries in the region. Youth programs is what I've been told in the past. So it's pretty standard. The timelines that we're dealing with, just for your own information, they can sell fireworks, and these are all safe and sane fireworks that are required by the municipal code. They can sell fireworks from June 28th and to July 4th. And depending on where the council meetings fall, It's possible if we were to kick this to the next council meeting, it wouldn't get approved until the 21st or the 22nd. They have to order their wholesale supplies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we've had a discussion in the past about making this more of an administrative process for the fire department. That change hasn't been made in the municipal code yet, because we were going to do it. There's some other things that needed to be done in the municipal code. That's why it hasn't come forward. But this application meets the requirements, excluding the location site, and we'd ask for your approval.
Councilmember Benson.
Yeah, it seems like last year they set up the Dollar Tree one, they set up in the site that is now the playground for the kinder care. But in years prior to that, they had set up over on the Starbucks side of the parking lot. Is that correct? Is that
correct.
no longer available because of?
Yeah, there's another property owner. There's another, I should say, tenant in that property that has set up that white fencing in there
Right.
for another playground, which has restricted their ability with setbacks to use that space as
Oh,
well.
I see. So there would be room for, they just wouldn't be far enough away from
Correct, exactly. There's certain setbacks.
that positive ally.
I
that-
think, yeah, I think
Okay.
that was the original. They were the ones who set up that area out there. Honestly, I'm not sure there's gonna be very few options for them up there on that site with the different setbacks they're required for.
Is the white fenced area, is it actually a playground at this point?
That is my understanding.
So that belongs to Positive Ally. It's a gated area.
But
and
it-
has
it-
some
big
astroturf.
play
I
area.
think Technically, it is. I don't know that there's toys or permanent structures in there, but they do have to be, I think, 50 feet from
Yeah.
any building or structure. And there can't be any vehicle parking within 25 feet. So I just wasn't sure logistically how they could possibly position it in that. And then also, since there's such limited parking, obviously with the construction fencing as well. So I had a number of concerns about that.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. I didn't want to forego the application and be the deciding factor that says, no, you can't
Mhm.
build there because there's not enough space. He was going to work with the property owner to come to that. My assumption is they're not going to find a location there because of the setback requirements. So, and then we just wouldn't authorize it. We may even pull it off the council agenda if they get back to me before that, if this moves forward to the council agenda.
Yeah.
This wouldn't be something that they could set up in the community park parking lot.
No, we don't normally do that. We don't normally allow people to sell fireworks in the community park. They can't light them off in the park
Okay.
either. That's a requirement. They're probably better off trying to find another location, potentially with the same property owner, maybe across the street in another parking lot or something like that. That's probably going to be their best option moving forward. And with both of these applications, 81 and 82, it's interesting. A lot of people don't realize this, but the group that writes the check for both the bond payment and the fee stand
Mhm.
is the wholesaling company for the fireworks. So they submit all the applications statewide. They make it really easy for these people to sell it so that they can sell their product.
Right.
So same thing with Impact Ministries. You'll notice they're out of Tacoma. The person who applied for J&M, he's from Okanagan County.
Mhm.
They don't know what's going on in the community. But it's their option. It's their due diligence to go out and find a location where they can sell. We had a third vendor, NTN, they wanted to sell over here by the latte stand, the Black Horse latte stand. There just wasn't enough room for it. We had to tell them that they couldn't do it. So they're always looking for locations to try to sell these things, but it's really up to the applicant to find it, not us to try to solve that problem.
All right.
And then I just had an additional question that doesn't necessarily refer to, the application really, but I did note that, I think it was J&M that had listed certain cities that they had a business license for or endorsement for, but I didn't see that Snoqualmie is listed as one of them.
We will verify that, yeah. So
Okay.
that list that was in there, I think it was Impact Ministries. They included a location of all the Safeway stores. I assume they got that from. It might be the same one I'm thinking of. Anyway, one of them has a list of businesses.
I think it was J&M because it had on their business license, but I was just wondering, do they have to get, in addition to getting the $25 fireworks retail stand license, do they also then have to get a business license? for
I
the
believe
city as
they
well?
do. We will confirm that,
Okay.
and I believe they do, yeah, to sell it. It's a retail business.
Okay. That's kind of what I thought, but, okay, and so then to the extent that this goes forward, it'll just go on council's agenda.
Yeah, normally these, because they're procedural, they go on consent agenda. The second one, there's a little glitch with this one as well. We're waiting for the checks from them. They didn't realize they needed to send the $25 check and a $300 bond. They have been aware, they're going to have it to us she thought they'll cut it next Thursday, so we should have it by council meeting on Monday. But again, if they don't, we just won't authorize it because it didn't meet the requirement.
Okay, and to the extent that it goes forward, is it possible to get like a map with the updated information, just because it doesn't include like any of the,
The setbacks and
Yeah.
all that, sure, yep.
okay.
Yeah,
And-
those are maps that they normally submit. And then we go out and inspect them
Mhm.
every single day that they're there. Before they can open, they have to be inspected by the fire department. Then we check them every day to make sure that they're compliant.
Okay,
So.
great. And then, city administrator, can I ask you a question as well? Is there going to be any information going out to the public about the rules, reminding them that we're not allowed to have illegal fireworks, we're not allowed to shoot them off in the parks and things like that?
It's definitely something we can work with Dana and the fire department to get probably more than once.
Yep, yeah, so we do multiple approaches. Law enforcement's involved with it as well. The police department, they put up signage all along the parkway, so that when people are driving in and out of the community, Dana handles the public outreach on social media. We'll do it from both the fire department page and she'll do it from the city of government page. Same thing with the police department. We're usually all over that. Hopefully, knock on wood, it won't be too dry this year. And the Safe and Sane fireworks that we've pivoted to back in 2016 has really made a huge difference. People are allowed to kind of celebrate in their neighborhoods with these smaller, less dangerous, for lack of a better term, types of fireworks. And then we have the community event, which is ready to go as well. So it's just, honestly, it's probably the best possible outcome compared to the way it was my first year here. It was like a war zone. I'd
Wild
never seen
West.
anything like it. So I know that disappoints all the 40-year-old children that are out there. Sorry.
I can make any comments there. All right.
Sounds like you live with one. Maybe.
I may.
No, I remember the Steve.
Oh, you may be one yourself. Okay, good.
2012.
All right, wonderful. Well, thank you. Council members, if there's no concerns, go ahead and forward it on to the consent agenda with updates.
Based on this discussion, no,
Not on the consent agenda?
no, put it on the.
Oh,
consent
okay.
Okay.
Based on the discussion.
All right, wonderful.
Okay, thank you.
Chief. All right, the next item is the strategic planning update.
That's for the fire department as well. So as an accredited agency, we're required to maintain a strategic plan in the fire department. The last strategic plan that we did was in 2016. It began in 2017. It was a community-driven strategic plan, which is required. And it was a 5-year plan. We brought in Emergency Services Consulting International, ESCI, to do that plan for us. So anyway, that plan technically just ended at the beginning of this year, but there was a handful of items that we didn't accomplish during the time because of COVID, and I was reassigned to city administration and Mike was the interim fire chief, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of good reasons why we didn't get to some of those items. And some of them, frankly, some of the items on there, the timing of them may not have been perfect, right? So there's certain elements within there that just didn't work timing wise. So anyway, the mayor has obviously, and you guys are aware of this, has an interest in trying to do a citywide strategic plan. And we've been discussing how to navigate this because whether the fire department still needs a strategic plan, even though the city would have a strategic plan. And normally the way that works is the fire department goals align with the city's goals. So what we've been trying to do is build a bridge from where we are today with an expired plan to get us to next year when it's more probable that the city will have either a strategic plan in process or actually adopted. So we reached out to our accrediting agency. We talked to the manager of that, and one of his recommendations was to take the existing strategic plan, take the items that have not been completed, and then bring it forward to council to adopt a resolution to extend it one more year. So we're in the process of doing that. We've pulled the items off of the list. There's, I think, 6 or 7 items on the list for goals that need to be still accomplished through that. What would happen with that is we would bring a resolution forward to the next public safety meeting with those items included. And then if you approve, it would go on to the council agenda for adoption as well. And then we would include those in our work plan to move forward until we get to next year. And this is our reaccreditation year.
Mhm.
So out of all years that we needed a strategic plan, this is the one that we needed. So again, that's why we were working with the accrediting body, just to make sure they were comfortable with that decision. So I just wanted to give you an update, so it's not a surprise when you see it on the agenda next week or in 2 weeks from now. It'll be a strategic planning update resolution. The attorney's reviewing it right now, and then we'll bring it forward.
Thank you. Council members, any questions?
Yeah, how does the mayor come up with that strategic plan? Is that all done through the administration? Or who puts that strategic plan together with the mayor?
Normally there's public meetings, there's work groups with different levels of the city organization. It's a big project. It's very collaborative. There'll be council section. Yeah.
Yeah, when we did the fire department strategic plan, I wasn't even part of it. I purposefully self-selected out of it so that my opinions or thoughts wouldn't influence decisions that were being made by the community. And it's both internal community and external community. So that's how, to Mike's point, that's exactly how it would work, is they would develop it overarching. My assumption is you would all be part of that process. There would be community outreach
And then you align the fire department's plan with that.
yeah. So what I hope is going to happen is that when they do the strategic planning process, my assumption is they're likely would bring in a facilitator or a third party company that would actually come in and assist the city with that. They would actually run a tandem process for fire. So looking for those elements that can come out and put into a fire department plan and then have them aligned together. A lot of the goals are overarching, like financial sustainability, right? Developing models that create a stable financial model for the fire department or for the city. What does that look like? And then the fire department would adopt a similar goal to that. And then we would look for ways to become more financially stable, as an example.
So I have one other whiny little cheapskate question. Why are we hiring people to help? I mean, you seem to know about emergencies and strategy and plans and that sort of thing. And I bet you there's a bunch of other people in the department. Why is it that we need to hire consultants to do that kind of thing?
Like the mayor. Wow. I'm kidding. No, so I wrote the fire department's first strategic plan back in 2013.
Was it terrible?
No, I thought it was a damn good one. I thought it was the best one we've ever had, if you want to know the truth. No.
Why are we hiring a consultant?
So I had just taken a class at the National Fire Academy called Executive Development, and they teach you how to do that. It's frankly somebody like Una who just came in and did all that work. Somebody like her or some other larger firm can come in and drive those conversations. I certainly could write a strategic plan. I could send a firefighter to the training class to write a strategic plan. But the other part of that is also making sure it's more community driven, that it's not influenced by certain opinions. And it's basically what you do is a SWOT analysis: strengths, weaknesses, opportunity, and threats. And then you develop goals that support the strengths and the weaknesses, and et cetera, et cetera. And you align those goals and you then build a work plan throughout, over a multi-year period. It's not rocket science at the end of the day.
It sounds like what you're saying is that you can't do that and also hear the voices of the community, or is it the appearance of hearing the voices of the community?
Well, I think it's both.
It seems to me like you'd be perfectly capable of making a plan and then saying, oh, wait, the community is saying that this is also important, and weaving that in.
No, I think it's a little bit of both, to be honest with you. I mean, it is time consuming to put that together with our strategic plan, and there'll be a copy that's on the next resolution when we extend it. It goes beyond just writing those strategic goals. I mean, a true comprehensive strategic plan is going to, like in ours for the fire department, included the level of morale within the organization, and it identifies the mission of the organization. It refreshes that. It talks about the values of the organization. It goes beyond just writing strategic goals if you're really going to do a comprehensive one. So, and then there's also the thing that there's a lot of competing interests for the time of the staff, right? We're trying to deal with all those other things. So something like this, that you really want to make sure you get it done well and right and not have any questions pointing to it. The last thing that I would hate to do is present a fire department strategic plan only to have one or two items come out and like, oh, that one's being driven by X, Y, and Z, and that's why we shouldn't do it. No, this was really from the community, and this is where they see the community, the fire department going in the future. So
I'm also hearing you say that we're going to be paying for this regardless, whether you're doing the work or we get a consultant to do the work. Somebody's going to get paid to do it. So
that is true if you want to really get dollars and cents, certainly. Yeah. But and doing a citywide one is a much more laborious process. I mean, it's because you're touching every single department, right? It's not just the single fire department piece of the pie. And it looks beyond just, the services the city's providing. So.
Councilmember One.
I do have to say that I had the privilege of being part of the 2017 community engagement piece, and I was very impressed with the process. And I think that it's very valuable for the rest of the city to do likewise. I think there's a lot that can be learned from it. But by taking the chief out of that position, it gives greater transparency. It gives greater community input without judgment. And then it simulated back and went back to staff and had their input on things as well. So it was very robust and well done. And I'm anxious to see the outcome from this because you have new staff. We have a lot of new residents
Mhm.
as well. So hearing those voices as well is going to be really important. And as a citizen, it gave me a greater appreciation for the challenges both the fire department has and the city in making sure that we get responses to the right place at the right time, timely enough. And I think it's going to be very, very valuable because otherwise it's on us. And it's like, we're not the best people to judge because we have colored glasses that we view things through. And so, no, I'm looking forward to this. So just kind of a personal testimony of the value that comes out of this as a citizen, I deeply appreciate.
I appreciate those explanations. I do. I'm always wary when I hear we're going to hire a consultant because, I mean, we all know of consultants that are great at collecting a check, and that's about it. But if there's real value to it, then fantastic. Absolutely. Let's get the value.
Yeah, I am a huge advocate of strategic planning. I learned, like I said, I learned it back in 2013 and wrote the first plan for the city. And at the end of the day, it really creates a more straighter line with planning than it does goal setting, where you can set goals and you're just kind of limping along and you may find that you're hopping lily pad to lily pad to lily pad versus focusing on what they say is the wildly important, the high stuff that is most important to your organization to help make it successful. If you really want to see a great model, the last year, the city of Lakewood had theirs up on their website. And it was broken down in really easily understood information. And it talked about how they were doing it. I don't know if it's still up. This was last year, like I said.
Let's take theirs and just change street names.
We could change Lakewood to. I think their community is a little different than Snoqualmie. Unfortunately. Anyway,
Thank
you'll
you.
be seeing that coming back next meeting.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Chief. Anything further? All right. In that case, the next item on the agenda is the CEMP, the Comprehensive Emergency and Management Plan.
Yep, the mayor asked me to come back and give you guys an update on that because it's been quite a few months since we've talked about that.
Mhm.
So she recently approved the hiring of Tetra Tech to come in and do that for us, not a consultant. So Tetra Tech recently wrote another department's in the Snoqualmie Valley strategic plan, and we applied for grant funds through the state to fund that. Unfortunately, we didn't meet that requirement to get those funds from the state. So what we've decided to do is repivot to our emergency management program grant funds. We get annually, and the time of year that we actually get them, the fiscal year is July 1st to June 30th. So our plan is to separate two of the periods for the grant plan so we can get $20,000 towards the grant funds to help offset the cost of the plan itself. It's going to be about $42,000. We'll take the remaining out of the fire department budget. And then if we need to, we'll do a budget amendment once we get done with that to bring those grant funds back into it from the general fund. The plan, our original plan that was written back in 2009 or 10, I think, I'm sorry, 2000 or 2001, was actually Shoreline's plan that was adopted. I think I mentioned that to you all before. So I think it's timely that we're going to get this refreshed and get it started all over again, and using Tetra Tech to do that, offsetting the cost with grant funds. We do have to get that done by the end of the year. It's another time staff commitment piece as well. So having Tetra Tech come in that and support us with that will help out quite a bit. And we'll bring in updates periodically to you all and then bring it forward as a whole document, and then you can adopt it by a resolution.
Councilor Watson.
Help me understand what the scope of the plan is.
Yeah, so there's multiple parts of the comprehensive emergency management plan. There's the basic plan, which kind of talks about staff duties and how they respond to a disaster when a disaster happens in the community, which the different roles are. And then they have the emergency support functions, ESFs is what they're called, and they have 1 through I think 13. And each one of those is a specific section, like 4 is fire, 3 is public health, 5 is transportation. And each department is a stakeholder in that process. So it's the same model that the state uses, the same model that the county uses. But what we do is we write those specific guidelines and specific purposes that are specific to the city itself. So anyway, so they'll come in and they'll actually do the evaluation process for it. They'll do community outreach as well. And then they'll will bring forward a plan that meets the needs of the community is the goal.
And this, a copy of the last one was circulated in October of last year, so you should have a copy of it in your email.
Yeah.
Councilmember Wong.
If not, it's online as well. It's on our emergency management page.
Just as a follow-up question, if I may. So it'd be like scenario under an earthquake and disruption to city services.
Yeah, no, that, so
sort of
let me
thing.
correct that. No, it's much more higher than that, right? It's this plan that kind of marches through. And when you see it, I think it'll make
Yeah.
more sense. It'll talk about communications, how we communicate in disaster. And the way the plan is designed is actually to address, regardless of the disaster, whether it's human caused or natural, that this would be the document that we would use to guide us through the process. As an example, the elected officials, you are the policymakers, you'll be in the policymaking room, making those high level decisions that will help support the fire and police and public works departments as they carry out the mission and the response side of it. Talks a little bit about mitigation. But basically it talks about those different roles. If we have to open the shelter, where is our shelter? It's up at the community center. Who handles that? Our HR and finance staff goes up there and staffs it until we can get Red Cross staff here. We've got 200 beds available. It used to be 50. We have 200 beds available now that we can set up there. Those types of things.
Thank you.
Sure.
Anything further? Councilmember Benson.
The $20,000 of grant funding that we're going to use to offset the cost of the consultant. Was that going to be used for something else? Is there something that we're foregoing as a result of this?
Yeah, so there was the original plan for this year. We haven't assigned the monies. In fact, I just got the application yesterday for they call it 2023, but it's the second half of this year into 2024. The 2022 funds, so from July 1st to June 30th of this year, we were originally going to use it. We used some of those funds for some of the community rating system work, using Tetra Tech for that work as well in the planning department. That's the group that affects the insurance, Spirits Waters Act for insurance rating for flooding events. They only used a portion of that, so there's available funds still available that we could have used. So we ended up just going in there, editing the grant, submitted it to the state. They re-signed it and approved it because it was very similar work. It's consultant driven work for the city. Used for resilience, which was the same category. So it was simple. It was more procedural to change it to that.
But we're not missing out on anything else that we had planned on as a result of this.
No.
Okay, great.
Nope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, the next item is the update on the controlled substance legislation. So we have Chief Phipps.
Evening. Hopefully this will be the last update as far as the controlled substance or Blake fix, if you will. As you probably already know, May 16th, the legislator went into a special session and actually had been convening 2 days prior to the actually opening this special session and came to an agreement on what they were going to look at to approve and vote on. And so in one day they approved, which is the bill that Governor Inslee signed. And so basically it is, I want to say there's some compromises, but some of them are very, very good. And some of them are maybe something that we'll have to deal with in the future, but at least there is something that we have. It establishes a simple possession as a gross misdemeanor, which was important. If you recall, with the Blake decision in 2021, they basically made personal use, simple possession, not a crime, or basically we had to give warnings, if you recall, 2 warnings essentially, and give them services. And it made it a gross misdemeanor, which means that's what we were looking for, because it really gives the incentive to get help. And that's the whole thing. And it's written all over the bill itself. If it's over 80 pages, I believe. And if you do take the time to read it, it talks a lot about the resources that are needed to give them treatment prior to any kind of significant amount of time in jail. One of the big issues was repeals the 2 mandatory referrals in lieu of arrest, which is what we've been doing. One of the reasons why we aren't coming forward to you today with a city ordinance to bridge that a gap, and there is a gap. Everybody thinks that July 1 is when it becomes in law. And it really does in a lot of areas, like the simple possession, gross misdemeanor. But they did not specifically address the issue about the 2 mandatory referrals in the bill that was signed. And if it's not specifically identified that that has a date that it's going to be adopted, it then falls back onto the 90-day default. And that would make it August 14th. So whereas the bill makes it a July 1 gross misdemeanor, the mandatory 2 referrals is still in place till October 14th. So a lot of communities are putting forward ordinances, or those that have already done that, to address that issue, and then rescinding that ordinance as of August 14th. There are those like us, with the recommendation of the administration and talking and our attorney, that they believe that maybe we do not go forward with an ordinance. It is still up to you as a public safety committee. If you'd like us to do that, we surely can do that. As of August 5th or 14th, we would then rescind that ordinance. Another area,
Chief,
yes,
sorry, just for clarification, that's because it's preempted based on the Washington statute. So once the second portion of that comes into play, any rules that we pass would become null and void, correct?
that's right. And yeah, that's what I'm referring next is,
Oh, sorry.
no, you're the boss.
So no actions required of us. It just happens automatically.
No, I think what I'm here is just, yeah, no action. We may have to adopt the issue about paraphernalia, but, and I'll get into that, but it repeals and restricts the local drug paraphernalia July 1st. So those cities that have ordinances about drug paraphernalia are no longer enforceable as of July 1. It authorizes health and community. North Bend has been dealing with this issue with a group that was coming in and wanting to hand out syringes and implements to take drugs, if you will, smoking items and so forth. And this bill actually makes that to where a city cannot, first of all, if they have an ordinance in place restricting that, it is repealed, and they cannot in the future make ordinances that would restrict that. This ordinance basically allows people to hand out for harm purposes, hand out those kind of implements for taking drugs, if you will. And so that is one of the issues. It establishes a pre-child diversion program, which I said is one of the focuses. There's going to be funding that's going to be available for after court process, in which instead of going to jail, they would then be deferred to some kind of treatment program, diversion program. And if they get 2 tries at that, and if they successfully do it, then the conviction is thrown out. If they do not successfully complete those programs after 2, the 3rd time, they could spend up to a year in jail. And hopefully that will be an incentive as well for them to get treatment and help. And so I've talked a little bit about the North Bend. North Bend is actually going forward. They're a little bit ahead of us on the ordinance based on timing wise, where their council meets and so forth. They jumped on it at public safety, which meets once a month. And we met last month on that. And so they're going to go ahead and move forward and then repeal it on August 14th. Things going forward, just to touch base. Next week, I will be attending a WASPIC legislative committee planning. I'm part of that committee, and I'm going to attend that to see. We just ended with one, and now we're going to start talking about what are we going to talk about next year. And so we're already starting the planning phase for that. And it's obviously we're going to talk about pursuits, even though we know the bill on pursuits was passed and there was some really good things in it. I think there can still be some areas for improvement. And so we're going to hope that discussion continues on. We're still going to talk about the juvenile access to an attorney. We believe that it actually does the opposite of what is intended, and that is to keep juveniles out of the criminal justice system. We believe because they're not talking that it generates a police report and now they're in the criminal justice system, if you will. And then we're going to be talking about retention and recruitment funding. We're going to make sure it did not pass this year, but it was heavily discussed. It was brought forward in all committees. And we think that there's a lot of interest in looking at that again for recruitment and retention.
Great, thank you. Council members, any questions? Councilmember Watson?
I'm a little concerned if we have one police force and two different sets of ordinances. And with the understanding that North Bend is moving forward, it would seem to me that we should do likewise, match what North Bend is doing.
That's always been our hope and wish that we have likewise ordinances. It makes it easier for us. That's usually thinking in the long term. If we're talking about a month from July 1 to August 14th, we're really only talking a month and a half to deal with the issue we will deal with in Snoqualmie. The same, this is if you decide not to go forward. If you decide to go forward, that's not a problem either. We actually have the ordinance basically written already. And so if we kept it the status quo, we would do the same thing that we're doing now. We would still take their drugs. We would still give them a referral. And then we would write the report. Whereas in North Bend, we could actually effect an arrest in that case.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
I'd certainly be open to reviewing what they've passed. I don't want to say, let's just do it because North Bend is, I don't think that's the right choice. And I don't want it to be perceived that way. And then it is just a short amount of time to pass something and have it on the books, and then can create some procedural issues after, but I'd be open to considering what their
We
legislation.
surely have enough time that if we do the presentation for the ordinance at our next public safety committee meeting, we would have time to put it on. It'd have to be read at the first and second reading to make sure that it is adopted by July 1.
We're running out of time.
Yeah,
Yeah, we'd have to push it.
May make a recommendation that we bring it to do we have time for a workshop Monday night for discussion of the whole council? Will that move us along quicker?
We'll be ready.
But I want to say there's already one scheduled.
yeah, Mayor Ross has her hand up. Mayor Ross?
I'm trying to find my information, but in order to do the ordinance, you're right, we need to read it the first and the second reading during the same council meeting, or waive the second reading. And then it's not as simple as, okay, we have an ordinance. There's a certain time between, it has to be posted. I can find the information real quick. So I think the earliest that we figured would be like July 4th would become effective. It wouldn't be July 1st. And so you're going to be missing out on several of the days. And so we can give you more information on that, but it wouldn't be that full time period. And then we also need to write in either a sunset clause or a repeal into the ordinance as well, so that it is completed by August 14th. So
I would personally have some concerns with trying to rush it out. And then I'd have concerns about waiving the second reading too, to the extent that we're going to be going forward and more aggressively pursuing folks with criminal prosecutions. I'd still be happy to look at it and review it, but I don't want to do this as a rush and then have this impact folks at a very personal level. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So are you saying that there's no time for us to do this with the first and second reading? And that time doesn't exist? There's no schedule that could make that work?
So
I agree. I think the second reading is really important for any ordinance. So
If you do a second reading, it's going to really cut it down to less than a month that it would be enforceable.
Because there's a waiting period after that second
Yeah.
reading also. It's like a 60-day process.
I have the information here. So if we read it this next Monday, First reading, June 12th, second reading, June 26th. The ordinance is signed on the 27th. Then a notice has to be sent to Seattle Times for publication by June 29th. It gets in the paper. And then effective date would be 5 days after publication. So then if we're going to repeal it, I'm not sure if you can include it in the ordinance. If you repeal it, then you'll have to have the first reading, repeal it on July 24th, second reading on August 14th. Ordinance would be signed. You can't repeal it until August 22nd.
You can have an effective date in the original bill, a sunset date on it.
Councilmember Benson.
I thought the repeal was automatic because the state law supersedes city law.
No,
It-
there's a requirement that you have to repeal that ordinance. Just like if you had, even though it is not enforceable, you go back in and repeal that ordinance.
And is there a requirement that we do that repeal by the 14th? Or can we just repeal it? Is repealing it on the 24th just as good since it's not enforceable between the 14th and the 24th anyway?
Yeah, my recommendation, and I'm not an attorney, but my recommendation would be to actually put it in the original bill as a sunset or a termination date on that ordinance. So it'd be effective from the date that it's enforceable to the August 14th date.
Mayor Ross, do you have your hand up again or still?
No, just take it down. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. All right. Councilmembers' thoughts?
I would be in favor of getting this rolling as soon as possible. And if it's not effective until the 5th of July instead of the 1st of July, okay, it's not effective until the 5th of July. But I think just because there's a 4-day period where it's not effective doesn't make it not worth doing.
Even though it'd only ultimately be effective for like 3 weeks.
Yeah, well, no, it'd be longer than that, right? We're talking about 41 days, right?
If you can waive the second reading or do a first and second reading at one council meeting, yeah, you're talking the same timeline you are. If you have a second reading at a subsequent council meeting, that of course is going to extend it another 2 weeks. And then in that case, you would be more, as Councilmember Christensen saying.
But I thought we were talking about doing the first reading on this Monday. And then if we get the first reading as early as this Monday's meeting, then I thought the timeline made it so that we could get this enacted by July 5th.
Yeah, if you do a first and second reading in this first reading and waive the second reading, then you could do that.
We would have to waive the second reading to get it to there.
To make it as early as possible, yeah, to make.
Well, right, but to get that July 5th date.
Yeah, I don't have the calculations that Mayor Ross has in front of me, so.
I thought the Mayor Ross was saying that we could read it at this next council meeting and then read it again 2 weeks after that.
We surely could.
And then what was it, a 4-day period, 5-day period before we could get it working?
Right, it has to be in the Seattle Times, notice sent to Seattle Times.
That's what it was. Yeah.
And then the effective date, if everything lines up, 5 days after publication, so.
That would be my suggestion, because then when we get both the readings in and, I would absolutely sacrifice those 4 days in order to get that second reading in.
Mayor Ross, do we know whether the city attorney would have time to review this and get it ready on that short of a schedule?
Yeah, I think it's been pretty well reviewed by our previous city attorney, and I believe City Attorney Linehan has looked at it. We just need to see if we can add in the sunset or the repeal date in there. So, and maybe Chief Phipps, have you spoken with him as well about it?
Yeah, the last one, I think you were included in that communication, and he has it completed. He just has to add whatever the direction is that you would like, whether it be a sunset date or the timing on it. But the bill or the ordinance itself is done. It's been worked on for maybe a month and a half, so.
Okay.
I'd be in favor of getting this going for this Monday. Whatever we need to do.
All right.
I second that.
All right. In that case, we'll go ahead and I guess direct staff to go ahead and get that on the next agenda.
Okay, I'll bring it forward to the Monday night's council.
First reading.
Thank you.
All right. Mayor Ross, is there anything else that you would need on our end?
I don't think so. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. In that case, I believe we are through the agenda. So if there is nothing further, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All right,
Cliffhanger.
the meeting's adjourned.